Flight of the Amazon Queen. I never got this game when it initially came out. I think part of that was always due to the cover image when I saw it. Of course, I saw this first time, I think, in a store down near Philadelphia, actually, not too far from King of Prussia, I believe. The store was Tower Records. Now, you have to understand, I think this was just before the ESRB rating system really was taking off. I could be a little bit wrong on that. But, it was one of those titles that would make me wonder. Because when I saw it, and I'll admit, part of me was in part driven a little bit by hormones, in part looking for other things, but also stuff that I could reasonably afford. But I admit, with a title like Flight of the Amazon Queen and the image I saw on there, I expected a completely different title than what it was, or different content than what it ended up being. In fact, it was one of those titles that, for me, I remember seeing this title, but I never got into it, never picked it up, and then you see it years later, and like, I remember that title. I remembered wanting to get it, and I ended up getting it when I got on to GOG and found it was one of those freebie titles, and so I got it. And like I said, I thought it was entirely something different, and then when I actually played it, I'm like, okay, this is definitely not what I initially thought it was when I was younger. And what it basically is, it's a point and click in the style, that's inspired by the old serials. You know, um, your generic adventures that involved your almost cliche things. And there is a lot of cliche stuff in here, but it's sort of also a little tongue in cheek on those styles. And you can tell this pretty much right from the beginning. I mean, it opens in almost like a movie style opening where you're introduced to your typical everyday, a different lady protagonist, Joseph King. Everybody calls him Joe. And when you put that together, you already know that this game is taking a tongue in cheek look at this genre. And it plays out where Joe is supposed to, once he gets back from this particular adventure, he's supposed to go up to take the latest starlet to her next photo shoot. And unfortunately, during the course of events, something goes wrong and he crashes into the Amazon. Ironically enough, his plane is called the Amazon Queen. So right away, there's your next little tongue-in-cheek moment there. And there's more tongue-in-cheek when it comes down later. But anyhow, I mean, he has a rival who's got his own goon squad to help make sure he gets what he wants. Classic for a serial at that time, in the 40s, whatever you want to call the time frame. Actually, I think it is set in the 40s. And even in the first part of the game, you are getting hit with tongue-in-cheek jokes, a laugh riot. I mean, you have to get by the goons, but in order to get by the goons, they have to not be able to recognize you. And you have to really use your head to try and figure some of this stuff out. And you can do all sorts of things with the different items you find and all that. And you have all sorts of crazy in-jokes in there, along with the cliches. I mean, Joe has to get ready to get past the guys by getting into a disguise. One that would fool these thugs. And he has to do it with the help of an old fling. Of course, he's not one to change in front of the gaming audience, and there's a, comes out of nowhere, like censored curtain or something, curtain. And this is where it really does get silly. I mean, it gets off the silliness. I mean, at one point they're chasing you. Once you get out, they chase you. You're on the back of a flatbed vehicle, and you're still in the costume. I'm like, wait a minute, I'm gonna change. He pulls down the thing again, and I'm like, well, you don't want me to see you, Joe, but you're perfectly okay with the guys chasing you and trying to shoot at you, seeing you change. I mean, what's going on here? In the game, like I said, it is very tongue-in-cheek. And it's funny. You play this game in part for the game, in part for the laughs, because everything that happens is so off the wall. I mean, once you get the Starlet, who has 3 crates, and that's her luggage, all the essentials for I think, 2-day photo shoot. And the plane, the Amazon Queen, crashes down in the Amazon, and when you escape the plane, I mean, you got, take advantage, distract the piranhas and all that. But, you get you get out of the plane. I'm like, and when you take a good look, you see that the plane, the only things available are apparently the lettering on the plane, which is a number 30 something. I cannot remember the other part of the number, but I do remember that the next 2 letters behind it, the 2 letters behind it are DD. I'll let you figure out what that hints to. And if you haven't figured it out by now, I mean, honestly, tongue-in-cheek jokes. Some of your interactions show more of the humor. We got our insurance from the same place you got those dance instructions from, those dance lessons from. You mean we've been had, Joe? Yeah, we've been had, Sparky. And of course, you work your way through things, and it does have a tongue in its own tongue. Like I said, there's the humor. You run across a gorilla in the Amazon jungle. How do you get rid of the gorilla in the Amazon jungle? Logic! It's the kind of same thing. It falls along that same retrospect that same thing that's mentioned in the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. And if you don't know what I'm referring to, it simply works as an argument that happens is an argument in which man proves God doesn't exist. And the thing is, and according to that story, it's God says to man, I must have faith for me to exist, which is why there's no proof of my existence. To which man says, yes, but look at the Babel fish here. This is such an amazing thing that it could not come about sure by pure chance and pure evolution, which means you had a hand in it, and henceforth is proof of your existence, and henceforth is proof you don't exist. To which God says, oh bugger, I hadn't thought of that, and disappears in a puff of logic. Man then says, oh, that was easy. Man then proves black is white and white is black and gets killed at the next zebra crossing. So, it's basically you've got that weird kind of logic. How to get by the gorilla in the jungle? Well, this is the Amazon. There's no gorillas in the Amazon. Ow, poof. It's fun watching him and hearing him deflate like... and all the sorts of weird things. You borrow a file from your mechanic because a missionary from the southern part of the United States is coming here to teach God to the heathen pygmies that are in the Amazon jungle. And to be honest, the pygmies in the Amazon jungle don't look anything like what you vision pygmies. But in order to talk with them, you got to get a English to pygmy dictionary, or dictionary or translation book. I mean, we all know how big those things were when in the 70s and the 80s. If you were a tourist going to a foreign country, you had the phrase book. Because that was the way a lot of people were trying to translate. But then you work your way through getting everything you need, and you have to go all over once you're able to go all over. And there's all sorts of weirdness and strange things you come about. And you have a lederhosen company in the middle of the Amazon forest. I mean, a lederhosen company in the middle of the Amazon rainforest. Now, doesn't that just sound like it's completely innocent? No, that's where the bad guys of this whole game are working out of. They have the company, their company office in the middle of the Amazon rainforest, and underneath is all the shenanigans that are going on, all the top secret projects. You have a super-powered soldier there, whom you must defeat by making him a super weenie. And you have another soldier down there who, oh my god. This one just floored me when I came across it. His name, I mean, part of the humor in this, I think, is because there was a TV show at the time of this game's production. It wasn't too long on the air, but it was long enough. It was called Dear John, in which you saw it basically revolved around the life of a newly divorced man, because his wife left him a Dear John letter. And that's a generic term for it. That is a generic term. Dear John. And the soldier's name is John. And he gets a Dear John letter. Oh my gosh. And of course, also during all this, you find out that the Amazons have been targeted. The tribe of Amazon women who capture, they occasionally capture men for uh, procreation purposes. And you can again see the thinking. I mean, this is the game set in the mid to late 40s, and these guys are like, "You don't want to be rescued. You don't. Are you kidding? We can get it any time we want, or when they want. We're happy here." Yeah, but what about equality and all that? What? That's a lot. That, isn't that a bit forward thinking for the time this game is set in? Yeah, right. You're right. I'm thinking when this game was made. I'm sorry. I mean, it was just like, boo, another fourth wall break. And of course, you had all sorts of other things. I mean, it went with the cliche, the Amazon women. I swear, when I was playing through that, I could have sworn that the one was using a Walkman, which isn't set to be made until the 70s, late 70s. And there's also, I mean, there are all sorts of crazy jokes, there are tongue-in-cheek moments, and this game does, in honor of one of its, I guess it's one of its inspirations, being one of the big makers, LucasArts. LucasArts was at that time making games in which it's impossible to die in. Because you try and, kill, do something stupid where you're going to get killed, it won't let you do it. I mean, you're going to chance going in that water with the piranha. I ain't going in that water, not until we get something to distract them piranhas. I mean, whoa. And the game is full of them. I mean, you got your trademark, of course, bad guys doing something dumb and getting themselves killed off. I don't know if I heard any Wilhelm screams. Need some money to get something. And again, this a good portion of this game is just figuring it out. Fun is figuring it out on your own. I mean, I wasn't even using a walkthrough when I played the game, and I'm looking at so many things. And like I said, you see all sorts of crazy in jokes or subtle jokes that you have to sometimes look at them a second time to fully catch them. Now, like as I refer back to like the first part of the game, Joe needs help from an old fling. Her name is Lola. She's a showgirl, and she has towels from the Copacabana. Uh, you have to know that song and all that to get that joke. But when it hits you, it's like, oh my god, that was subtle. That was sneaky. And all the things that can happen in the game, and then you have to go to a hidden temple, and you see guys do something. You have to progress. Sometimes help the bad guys, and then they do something stupid, and like, oh, you were stupid when you did that. And it's full of humor, tongue-in-cheek humor, offbeat humor. I mean, to get to the island, you need death to help you. I mean, he's on a little vacation, and I'm thinking, oh my God, here we have Terry Pratchett's death, and I don't think Terry Pratchett made it. His books fully made it over here to America until the time of the internet and people were really starting to get open up to other cultures. But I may have to look into that. I got into Pratchett because my relatives in England had sent me over some of the books, and but it's a fun. This game is fun. It's a laugh. It does one thing that in normal normal circumstances I can't stand in a game. And that is the to be continued type ending. I mean, once you get through the game, you get to the hidden valley, which is full of dinosaurs. Oh my gosh! And our cliche of the cereals and that. Um, you come across, I mean, the bad guy, overall bad guy, he's been wanting to initially turn the women and the Amazon women into dinosaur women. And well, the thing is used on, and then you have a giant robot, giant stone robot, something like that. And I'm like, oh my god, that you have to, fight the bad guy, and like, okay, we have to do this, but I have to do it in such a half-ass, like, such a Rube Goldberg way, and to defeat him after he's been quote turned into a giant ass dinosaur, which ironically enough still wears his spectacles and still has his hair. And I think some remnants of his lab coat, which is pretty good fiber that Floda made there to make an outfit that could stretch to fit a dinosaur like that. I mean, honestly. Of course, when you beat him, and characters right off into the sunset, with Joe finding the definite, not Ms. Right now, but Ms. Right, his rival, who's gained a conscience, seems to get up together with the starlet. She's had a bit of an eye opener too. And Sparky's got his comics. He's happy. And we ride off into the sunset, and oh, our bad guy's not totally dead? Ruh-roh! And it just ends like with the end, either a the end question mark or to be continued. I can't remember right now. And that's usually something that irks me in games, but with this one, even though you never got a sequel, it just worked because it's doing that jab at the old serials, which is what they did. And overall, Flight of the Amazon Queen is a great game. The fact that it is a freebie on GOG, I recommend you get it, you play it, you get a laugh out of it, because that's what you need. And honestly, this is a game you take with a grain of salt. It's tongue in cheek, and it's just so fun to play. I do recommend you get this game, you experience this game at least once, because you'll laugh. You'll do something or come across something that doesn't make sense in the slightest, and it'll just make you laugh. And this game is what's good for. It's a laugh. It is a laugh. It's just the way you solve some of the things. It's like, seriously? And you will laugh. You will laugh. There's very little frustration in it. And whatever little frustration is in the game, you get past it with the laughter. And that's all I have to say about Flight of the Amazon Queen. I do hope you've enjoyed this little retrospective on this game, and I appreciate if you give the video a like. I hope you subscribe to the channel. Again, this is Rich Kale here on YouTube, Rich Gen X elsewhere. And you'll find some other stuff on the channel. Like I have a bunch of playthroughs up, and who knows? There's some old interesting videos on there. But take a look. You'll find something that's worth a laugh. Or you can laugh at my utter failure or cheer me on as I play the game Monstrum. You can agonize over on me making dumb mistakes as I do the playthroughs, because all my playthroughs are unedited. I'll freely admit if I'm going to take a break away from something because I think something's going to take a shit long time to do. And that did happen on one of my playthroughs. Took me a better part of an hour and a half offline to solve a problem. But, you know, come check them out. I'd appreciate it. Hit the subscribe button. Even ring that little notification bell. Take care, all. Bye.